October 2025. A hedge fund partner in New York adjusts his cuff during a boardroom meeting. Across the table, 3 wrists flash the same watch. Same bezel, same bracelet, same unmistakable crown. No one comments on it, because at this level, Rolex is no longer impressive. It's expected. That moment captures the uncomfortable truth Rolex never advertises. The most powerful luxury watch brand on Earth didn't lose exclusivity by mistake. It engineered popularity deliberately, and now it's paying the price. This is the story of how Rolex became too popular and why that outcome was intentional from the start. Revelation 1. Rolex was never trying to be rare. Collectors love to say Rolex scarcity is accidental. That demand simply overwhelmed production. That wait lists spun out of control unexpectedly. That the brand lost control. That narrative is comforting. It's also false. Rolex has always understood something most luxury brands never mastered. Ubiquity creates authority. From the very beginning, Rolex wasn't positioning itself as the rarest watch. It was positioning itself as the default symbol of success. When someone thought of achievement, Rolex wanted to be the first name that surfaced, not the quietest, not the most complicated, the most familiar. Familiarity scales power. Revelation 2. The advertising machine. Rolex didn't become dominant through watchmaking alone. It became dominant through visibility. For decades, Rolex attached itself to moments of legitimacy. Wimbledon, Formula One, deep-sea exploration, Mount Everest, golf majors. These weren't random sponsorships. They were authority laundering. Every time Rolex appeared beside excellence, endurance, or victory, it absorbed credibility. Not quietly, relentlessly. By the time someone reached financial success, Rolex had already trained them to associate the crown with a rival. That kind of psychological embedding doesn't happen accidentally. It happens with intent. Revelation 3. Accessibility was the strategy. Unlike ultra-exclusive brands, Rolex never wanted you to feel embarrassed walking into a boutique. They wanted aspiration, not intimidation. Clean stores, friendly sales language, clear product hierarchies. Rolex positioned itself just out of reach, but not too far. Close enough that success felt measurable. Close enough that promotion equaled purchase. Close enough that wealth had a uniform. This accessibility is why Rolex scaled faster than any competitor. But scale comes with a hidden cost. The more people who can identify the symbol, the less power it holds among those who already made it. Revelation 4. Waitlists were not a failure. When waitlists exploded in the late 2010s, many assumed Rolex had lost control. In reality, waitlists solved multiple problems at once. They created artificial scarcity without reducing brand visibility. They shifted blame from Rolex to retailers. They turned frustration into obsession. People didn't stop wanting Rolex when they couldn't get one. They wanted it more. Waitlists transformed Rolex from a luxury purchase into a psychological pursuit. And the longer someone waited, the more emotionally invested they became. That's not a breakdown. That's a perfected funnel. Revelation 5. The gray market was tolerated. Officially, Rolex condemns gray market flipping. Unofficially, it benefited enormously. Every skyrocketing resale price reinforced the idea that Rolex was not just a watch, but a store of value. That narrative pulled in buyers who didn't care about horology at all. They cared about liquidity, about status stability, about wearing something that couldn't lose. The gray market turned Rolex into a financial instrument, and financial instruments attract volume. Volume attracts attention. Attention kills mystique. Revelation 6. Rolex became a uniform. At a certain level of wealth, Rolex stopped signaling individuality. It started signaling membership. Corporate executives, real estate developers, athletes, entrepreneurs, same watches, same references, same choices. Rolex became the watch you wore when you didn't want to think, and that's powerful. But it's also dangerous, because when everyone wears the same symbol, the symbol stops separating anyone. Among the truly wealthy, Rolex shifted from aspiration to baseline, and baselines don't impress. Revelation 7. Rolex knew who it would lose. Rolex understood something uncomfortable. It knew that as it gained mass prestige, it would lose favor with elite insiders, collectors, old money families, taste-driven buyers, and it accepted that trade because mass dominance generates more power than niche reverence ever could. Rolex didn't want to be whispered about. It wanted to be unavoidable, even if that meant becoming too common for the very people who once defined its status. Revelation 8. Too popular was the endgame Rolex never aimed to be. Misunderstood. It aimed to be everywhere. The goal was not exclusivity in the traditional sense. The goal was cultural saturation. To become the watch that meant success to everyone, even if it meant less to those at the very top. That's why Rolex didn't pivot when overexposure became obvious. That's why it didn't rush to reinvent itself. Because Rolex isn't chasing taste, it's chasing permanence, and permanence requires scale. The Reckoning. Rolex didn't fail at being exclusive. It succeeded at being dominant. But dominance has consequences. Among the wealthy, Rolex now signals safety instead of sophistication. It says you arrived, but not how. It says you succeeded, but not uniquely. That's why high net worth collectors are quietly rotating away toward watches no one recognizes, toward brands that don't advertise, toward pieces that require explanation. Because once you no longer need validation, visibility becomes a liability. Rolex became too popular because popularity was the business model. It traded mystique for scale, individuality for uniformity, whispers for worldwide recognition, and in doing so, it secured something no other watch brand has ever achieved: total cultural dominance. But dominance isn't the same as distinction, and Rolex knows that. It just decided the trade-off was worth it. Drop a comment. Do you think Rolex went too far? Or did it win the game exactly as planned?